What even is the culture of hip hop? What up, words? Your boy Charles Brown back again, talking facts. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe, hit the notification bell. Keep sending those Cashapp to CLBMG. Join the membership, gang. Listen, I want to have this conversation because this is inspired by the last 12 months of activity regarding the Kendrick Drake battle. And a lot of us YouTubers have been saying for a while that Drake doesn't understand the culture. He doesn't understand the culture of hip hop. If he would have just understood the culture, he's from a different culture. He doesn't get it. Had he not overreacted to the control verse, we wouldn't even be having this issue because the culture understood it, right? When he got called out on the control verse by Kendrick, everyone in the culture knew that it was just a not a warning shot, but more likely just a call to arms, just saying, you know, we're both MCs, we're all MCs, everybody I'm naming, I respect you, and I want to body you on records, and that's what every MC in the hip hop culture understands. Some MCs did catch a little bit of feeling, even some guys that weren't even named on the record, like Jay Electronica, but end of the day, even he knew that this is a cultural moment, and it was only for, I'm not going to say for fun, but mostly it was just to position himself and let his competition know, listen, I see you, but I got this, right? So many of us were pointing fingers and saying who's in the culture, who's not in the culture, and not only at Drake himself, but a lot of fans who ran with the narrative that he had the right to be upset. And to this day, they still have people saying he has a right to sue, to take Kendrick to court, to take his label to court. It's getting kind of funky and it's getting kind of weird. And we're getting to a space where we don't have much control over this culture anymore because so many voices that aren't involved with the culture are speaking about the culture. So I want to break down what actually is the culture and just have a conversation, because I think a deeper meaning, a deeper knowledge of this is where we need to start with. I think what's going on is a lot of people who may be accustomed to pop music or accustomed to R&B music or accustomed to reggae music, just different things that don't pertain to the culture. They dip their toe into rap when a good song comes out, but they're not really part of this culture. And they're being allowed to make wide-ranging comments and pretty much set standards about what's going on in our culture. So I want to have this conversation to kind of like Drake told Baca to chill the noise, right? Like some of the noise is getting a little crazy, and there is a lot of noise. So let's go way back, right? This is going to be one of them conversations where we go way back, and I want to speak on the full picture of the culture, the way most of us see it who have been around since the 70s, right? 70s babies, 80s babies, 90s babies. I don't think you get to define the culture of hip hop if you're born in the 2000s. Like, I don't know if we're going to be listening to your opinion of hip hop because you have your whole thing is different, right? So we're going to take it back to where it began in the 70s. And I went in and I got a basic definition to build this conversation around, just so we can start somewhere. So this is what I started with when I went. I said, I want to have something a base point, where a document that's going to set the standard of where we're going with this. So hip hop culture is a multifaceted art movement and a way of life that emerged in the Bronx, New York City. It was Black people in the Bronx displaying, just bringing up a culture. What had happened was there was a lot of gang fights and activities, very, very violent. The Bronx was in decay. The Bronx was it was disrepair. It was very, very poor. And one of the things that comes out of poverty is violence. And a lot of the young kids in the Bronx and the surrounding boroughs were fighting and stabbing, and some were dying. It was a very, very tough place to grow up. And to combat the violence, some of the leaders in the community right, started to compete using dance, and they were breakdancing and things of that nature. They were doing graffiti, just different things to quell and direct that energy another way. A lot of people give DJ Kool Herc the credit for starting what we know now as hip hop. When he was at a party with his sister, and the way he was using the break beats of the records, right? He was getting, just taking the break beat according to people who were there. He was using the break beat so that to extend the records, and having the break dancers have more time on the floor to battle, quote unquote, battle against each other. So remember, this is going to, it's going to come back up again. So listen to what I'm telling you. The break dancers were battling against each other. Instead of pulling out knives and straight out going to war, they started to battle with dance. And they were dancing in the subways and things of that nature. They would get arrested for this. This was not like something that was just, oh, it was sanctioned. Okay, go ahead, do your no, they would run down in the train stations and try to arrest these kids for dancing in the train stations, but which was one of the best places to do the dancing. And they would go down in the train stations and ride in the trains, do graffiti. They would get, all of this was dangerous. So they was always in trouble of getting chased down by cops, So it wasn't like this la-di-da, happy-go-lucky thing that they were just doing. And no, this stuff was, all of this stuff had a deeper meaning. This was street-related activity. These were things that people really were risking it all in some cases. You're going to dance against your enemy. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on, gang. So it wasn't like all shits and giggles, okay? So what had happened was they came up with these 4 core elements, and I'm going to start here. It's defined by 4 core elements. DJing, right? The DJ had to come out. They would do these block parties, and the DJ would hook up, however, one way to electricity they would hook up. They would hook up with the street lights. Like, again, I told you, it was destitute. It was poor. And these people made something out of nothing. It wasn't these platinum records and all this rich stuff going on. These were regular, everyday people finding a way through the misery that they were going through to make things better. They would throw these block parties. Everybody's coming out. So the DJs were a big part of this. They started making their names by being able to bring these records out and make everybody have a good time in front of the buildings where they were at, or whatever block they were on. And they became the disc jockeys. Disc jockeys they're from the radio. They got that term from radio, disc jockeys that played discs on the radio. And you became a DJ by having your own set of records and things of that nature, and going out to the park jams and playing out there and building your name. So that's the DJ, right? MCing is the second element of hip hop. MCs were only created, for lack of a better word. The MC was formed because the DJ really couldn't speak for himself. He wanted somebody out there to tell the crowd who he was, right? So everybody's not inclined to sit there and be like, I'm Kevy Cat, whatever it is. So somebody was brought in to entertain the crowd and shout the DJ out, right? To make rhymes about the DJ and what he was doing and how cool he was. So that was the MC who started hosting these events, and he became the forefront of what was going on. So now you never had a DJ without an MC, right? It became that. Like, you started to get DJ Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince. Why do you think Fresh Prince's name wasn't first? Because the DJ was more important back in the day. So you always had, DJ started to get MCs, and every DJ wanted an MC, right? Jam Master Jay had Run DMC. So it was a whole thing, right? So what happened with the MCing, they became more charismatic. They became more of the forefront. Like, whoever's up there with the mic, sooner or later, he's going to eclipse the DJ, especially if he's good. The MCs started to eclipse the DJs, but now you have 2 elements. You have DJing and MCing, right? Or the rappers, right? So to be clear, the rapper is the MC. So for those that don't know what an MC, right? MC is a master of ceremony, and that's the rapper, right? The third element is breakdancing, right? I already explained to you that the breakdancing was to combat the violence in the streets. They started to dance battle instead of battle with knives, battle with fists, battle with guns. They started to dance battle. It was a really cool time to be alive, and it was beautiful to see. And a lot of people have lost sight of breakdancing. They still do it in other countries. It's really big overseas, and breaking has not died. It just is not the center of attention because the rappers started to be so much more profitable that they started to put all the interest on the rappers. You can't really build a corporate entity, a structure, a label around a DJ, and you can't build it around a breakdancer, but you damn sure can build it around a rapper or a group of rappers who are making original music, right? A DJ's not making original music, and breakdancers don't make original music, but the rappers can. So that's why the rappers have eclipsed for the last 30, 40 years. The rappers have eclipsed the DJs and the breakdancers. And the fourth element of hip hop is the graffiti artist, which is a big element. I mean, I'm from the era where all of that stuff mattered. I've seen it all. I've been everywhere. I did a lot of stuff with graffiti, breaking. I did it all. You know what I'm saying? Like, at one point, they used to pay me to put graffiti on people's pants in school. Like, when back in the day, they had the big block letters on people's pants. They would give me their jeans, and I would put their name on it and draw a radio and this and that and the third. And that's my claim to fame. That's as close as I get to doing graffiti. I never like did a tag on the wall or things like that, but I did know how to do graffiti, block letters, use paints and colors and So I did do that. So every element of this shit, I could get behind the turntable right now and do something for you. I can give you an hour, right? You know what I'm saying? Of DJ, and I can break that. I used to break dance like crazy, like all that good shit. So all these elements, I can give you something from all of them. But that's because the era I was born in. I don't think a lot of people that were born after that era want to or care about these elements, but that's just who I am. You understand? So the hip hop culture, the core of it, those four elements at one time or another were important to people like myself. Now, if people don't know that or they aren't exposed to it, they're not going to understand it, right? So DJ and turntablism involves using turntables to manipulate records and create new sounds, often layering beats and using techniques like scratching. So scratching was one of the things the DJ started doing. It became a big fixture in the hip-hop community, the hip-hop culture. And at one point, the scratching was more important than the rapping. The scratcher, I mean, the DJ who could really scratch really well, like DJ Jazzy Jeff, go back to him, Grandmaster Flash was like an engineer with this DJ and stuff. A lot of the stuff that DJs have evolved to was because Grandmaster Flash was so smart. This guy's like literally like a scientist. He put it down to like mathematical terms of how he created these scratches. We wouldn't know none of this stuff that if it wasn't for him. I believe he invented the slip mat. The slip mat is what allows you to spin the record backwards and make the scratches more smooth. Any DJ without a slip mat isn't a real DJ. You need to have something between the record and the turntable so the record can go back and forth smoothly and easily. So the DJing was very important, and scratching was a big part. And most of the records that we had back in the day got scratching in them, and a lot of times they got the DJ's name in it. A lot of artists, when they came out back in the day, they had the obligatory DJ track, right? Like EPMD, they would do a track for DJ Scratch. And back in the day, you almost always had a track dedicated to the DJ because the DJ was that important back in the 80s and in the early 90s. And we got away from that again when the corporate structure and the people, let's just be honest, I'm not going to sit here and blame the corporations, because the people started to phase DJs out because they're so busy looking at the rapper. Oh, he's cool, he's cute, like that. So it started to turn on to everybody cared about the rapper. They didn't really care about the DJs as much. Let's just be honest. And the DJs fell off. And let's just be honest too, there's a lot of fraud DJs that really couldn't scratch. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just going to be honest. It's no disrespect, but I heard that Eric B wasn't really doing the scratches on the Eric B and Rakim records. I'm just going to be honest. I don't know if it's true or not, but that was always a thing, that Eric B didn't even do the scratches. And he ain't the only DJ that had a big name and wasn't scratching worth shit. So some people started to not care who was doing the scratches because they're getting scratching and played out. Right? So it is what it is. But you had the DJs, the turntablists, then you had the MCs, and MCing and rapping is a rhythmic and rhyming vocal expression often used for storytelling, social commentary, or self-expression. So right there, you got to understand what you're doing. When you're calling yourself an MC or a rapper, you got to be using storytelling, social commentary, or social expression. That's what I always say. This is my in my world, when I describe a hip hop, a rapper, you really only doing two things on the mic. You're talking about what you do or how you do it. Or you're only talking about what's happening, what's going on. It's not a whole lot of other stuff that you're getting into, but now it's how you can say it a million different ways, right? But it's only you have to be a part of the bigger picture when you're rapping. If your rapping is mad small minded, then you're probably not a good MC. You're probably not a good rapper. You have to be talking about bigger things than yourself, not just yourself all the time. This thing says storytelling, which stories don't have to be about you, but you have to do it in a way that people can relate to it, right? You have to be social commentary. At some point, any rapper, you're going to have to say something. In some kind of way, you're going to have to speak about your social issues. I'm not telling you got to be conscious, but you're going to have to some point, I'm not saying you got to be political, you got to be super pro-black, but you got to be a real hip-hop artist, you're going to be using social commentary at some point. And you're going to be expressing yourself, not someone else. This is very important. It's very important. You're expressing yourself. And if an artist is doing that, which I'm just going to be honest, self-expression is the underlying word in that is self. That means if someone else is writing for you, you're not really expressing yourself. I'm just going to be honest. So that is a part of MCing and rapping. So we got to remember that when we have the discussion about who's in the culture and who's not, right? All of this stuff is important to know. Now let's keep it moving. Breaking, a dynamic dance form that combines athleticism, artistry, and musicality performed to hip-hop music. That is a break dancer. And I'm going to go even a step further. It's not necessarily they breaking the hip-hop music, because I've seen break dancers go off to anything that's hard. You know what I'm saying? Like, they going to go nuts. It ain't always just hip-hop. It's house music. They can break to anything. So, but it got to be like a good beat, fast beat, hard. So break dancers can break to anything, but they usually do you do it to hip hop music, and it is a form of hip hop, and that's the culture. That's what we're discussing. And the last element allegedly is some people argue, you get these. Man, I'm just gonna be honest. Some people are contrarians, and these 4 elements right here, you're gonna get somebody in the comments to say X, Y, Z. Well, you didn't say. We don't. As soon as they do that, they're weird, because most of us, we've accepted the 4 elements, and that's what it is. Somebody's going to come along with a 5th one that they never, like, it's weird. I get it, gang, but we're just go with the fucking flow sometimes, gang. Graffiti art, a visual art form that uses spray paint to create murals, tags, and stylized letterings on walls and other surfaces. A graffiti art, they use the Krylon spray paint, and they make these beautiful pieces. Some guys are trash, like, you know what I'm saying? They'll go and make a goofy thing, put boo-boo, and just like whatever, and it's goofy, and they didn't put no thought into it. Some dudes walk around with one can and just cross other people's shit out, or spray their name, and that's it. It is what it is. Some stuff is for, like, territorial reasons. They just writing something to let you know this is that hood, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, graffiti art is a beautiful art form. The graffiti artist translated and graduated from writing on trains to putting their work in museums and getting paid a lot of money. It was art, and it started to be considered artists in some circles. And yes, a lot of those guys went down and ended up in Manhattan and were making money to do these murals and things like that. So graffiti didn't just stay on the trains and on the walls of the Bronx and wherever. It's a worldwide phenomenon, and people are highly respected for doing it. So it's not just something that phased itself out. It is art as well. The colors and the shadings that they're doing, this stuff is taught in colleges. So it's not just, yeah, they used to do graffiti in the zone. No, graffiti to this day is a classified art form. All right, so let me continue. Now, beyond the 4 elements, according to this, the hip-hop culture also encompasses other elements that contribute to its unique identity, right? Like I told you, somebody's going to come along and say, well, there's another element, da-da-da, which I get it. But we want to keep it simple, to keep it where we can have this conversation for years going. We don't need to be going on and on. But there are beyond 4 elements that do contribute to hip-hop. Knowledge. You got to know something, son. The concept of passing down knowledge, values, and wisdom within the community. And that is important. As a hip-hopper, you need to be passing that stuff down. Graffiti is like when they used to draw on the walls, right? Back in the day, I'm just skipping my mind, but when they would put stuff, they would put things on the walls and caves. That's what graffiti is. It's telling stories, right? So you need to be able to pass that down, and your rapping, your DJing, everything needs to reflect the past to a degree. And that's why we have this conversation about hip hop has changed. Yes, it should change and evolve, but it still needs to have the elements of what we're talking about too, to a degree, to be really considered hip hop. Once you take away and strip away everything and you just get this repetitive, redundant nonsense that just, you're talking about killing ops nonstop, and it's just never, it's nothing ever. Like, you get a guy, he makes a record, it has 11, 13 tracks on it, and every single track is nonsense and is just violent criminal stuff. We're not really, that's not really full-fledged hip-hop, and they're not doing this thing right. You have to touch on social commentary, some storytelling. You got to be better at this than just, yeah, I'm gonna kill dudes when I see him. Like, that's not hip-hop. That is an element, but it's a bad element, and it's not something that we can sit there and get behind and say, okay, he's doing hip-hop. No, you might be doing rapping, you might be doing trapping, you might be doing drill rap, but hip-hop, I'm telling you what this is a beautiful thing. It's all of this stuff combined, and the people that don't understand this are the people that's going to mess it up, right? The people that's going to look for record sales and how many people are talking about you on Twitter. That doesn't make you a good hip-hopper. I'm just going to be honest. So let me keep this moving. Self-expression, coming back to that, a focus on individual creativity and the form to express oneself through art, music, and language. Street fashion. Fashion is a very big part of hip-hop. It is what it is. We've been into fashion since this thing started. Go back and look at them pictures of the 70s. They got the furs, the raccoon hats, the bubble goose, the polos, the Adidas with no shoestrings, and Adidas with the fat shoestrings, laces. They had big gold chains, 4-finger rings. Everything was fashion. The hoop earrings still wearing to this day with the name in them, Shanita and all that. This was part of the culture. The culture looks a certain way, and our culture has been jacked for years. Rich and famous people adopt what we do, and they will run with it. It'll end up on a fashion runway in Paris, and you can tell that it's hip hop, but they won't say this is hip hop. They don't say where they got it, right? But hip hop borrows from that too, and that's how we get where we are. So it's a whole creative bubble, but hip hop has a certain connection with fashion that's never going to change. That's who we are. All right, so let me keep it moving. One more thing is two more things. Street language, a unique slang and vernacular that has become a significant part of the hip-hop culture. We speak with a certain vernacular. We speak with a certain slang. We can speak to each other and say certain things, and people outside of the culture won't understand that. You're not going to get everything, right? But for the most part, you're going to speak to each other in a certain way. Like, I'm here for the yams, da-da-da. You're going to speak to each other a certain way, and you're going to understand it, right? There's probably 20 things that I can say in this video that I probably say it subconsciously or without even thinking about it, and you just roll with it because you either get it, you already know what it means, or you use deductive reasoning and you figure out, okay, he must be talking about XYZ, and you already understand what I mean, and I don't got to explain to you every time I use some slang or vernacular that is indicative to the hip-hop culture. But that is our culture, and we make up new slang almost every day. Some of it sticks, some of it don't, right? We're not saying Bozak no more, but some of it's still around, right? So like ether, you got ether, that stuff's still around. So it is what it is. And a lot of things become a part of the culture, and they never change it no matter what you want to do. Some things will never leave the culture, but we speak with a vernacular that is indicative of how people from the streets, right, speak. So you need to understand that part, that if you're going to be in this culture, we're not going to use correct English all the time. We're going to use a slang term. We're going to use words that might be a double negative. You know what I'm saying? This is how we talk. It is what it is. You can't change it. You can't make it better. You can't make it worse. You're either in this culture or you're not. And I'm not telling you not to speak correctly. What I'm telling you is some of us don't, right? So that's the part of that you need to understand. Entrepreneurship, a focus on building businesses and finding opportunities within the hip-hop community. Like, we had a massive surge in the late 90s, early 2000s, especially. We had a surge of moguls. Everybody was selling sneakers. Everybody was selling liquor. Everybody was selling clothing, and they were promoting themselves. They were promoting their brands. They were having brands come up to them and say, okay, we want you to wear these Ray-Bans and we'll pay you, da-da-da. And we still have it with social media where people are getting endorsement deals. It is entrepreneurship, and a lot of guys follow suit. Like Jay-Z took it another level, but he did start with the selling of the, Armadale vodka and these different alcohols, and Dame Dash had Pro Kids. He bought Pro Kids and started selling Pro Kids, and people started trying to figure out, how can I become an entrepreneur? Master P showed you how to be an entrepreneur with all of these record deals he was giving out, 50 acts, and that. He became a multi-millionaire, and he still is. And this is a guy that started in the 90s with Bout It, and now to this day he got his masterpiece cereal. He's still out here, he's cooking. So street entrepreneurship is a element of hip-hop culture. You have to learn how to do better as you get older. You can't be out here in your 40s and 50s like all messed up, and you still don't know, you still just, all you get is rap money. It has to be other things going on, because rap money ain't gonna support you for too long. Just, it is what it is. And influence and impact is the last thing that is on this document. Hip-hop culture has had a profound impact on music, art, fashion, language, and social consciousness, and that is all facts. Hip-hop moves the needle on everything, no matter whether they want to admit it or not. I can go back to 82, 83. They were doing rap-based commercials in the early 80s, and I'm still surprised to this day when I go back and see a straight-up rap commercial in 1982. I'm like, wow, we've been that long? Like, they've been using our swag since the very beginning. Rap started getting big, they jumped on it and started to commercialize it very, very early. And it's just, it's a phenomenon, right? It has become a global phenomenon, influencing various aspects of society and serving as a powerful tool of self-expression, storytelling, and social commentary. And not to mention that, it brings a lot of people together, right? A lot of race relations have been healed and improved. There are a lot of things that happen just because of rap, where they wouldn't let us do this, that, and the third before. Now they're begging us to be in movies, begging us to be in TV shows. It got so crazy that the actors that were trying to get roles started to get, it's a fact, they started to get a little upset because rappers could walk in and get a role that a seasoned actor was trying to get for 15 years. A rapper could come in, Ice-T comes in and get the role, LL Cool J comes and get the role, Ice Cube gets the role. They start giving rappers roles in these movies and TV shows. How many TV shows you've seen with a rapper as the lead, right? LL Cool J had In the House, Will Smith is Fresh Prince. A lot of rappers started getting these shows, and they were like, yo, how are these guys getting shows? You're not giving thespians who've been studying this stuff for mad years, we can't get a role. But hip-hop became so influential that you didn't even really need to act that good. I never thought DMX was that great of a actor. I'm just going to be honest. But DMX was getting roles hand over fist, all right? Ja Rule's an awful actor. It's a lot. He's still in Fast and the Furious. It's a bunch of awful actors that are rappers. At one point, it became like, if you saw a rapper in the trailer, the movie was gonna be trash. It just got so crazy. But the rappers now are getting better at. They've gotten better at it. Really, Joey Badass is a great actor, right? I think that what's my guy that runs with? He used to run with Kanye. He don't like him no more. He's a great actor. I can't think his freaking name, but he has albums with Kanye. Great actor. I think he's a great actor. He's in Westworld and things of that nature, right? Kid Cudi. And some of these guys really act. I think Jaden Smith is a great actor, right? Some of these guys can act and still rap. So it's not just a over heavy-handed thing that, okay, rappers can't act, but we're involved in all of those aspects of hip-hop, whether we're good at it or we're not. It is what it is. Now, I say all that to say this. That culture is a beautiful thing, but if you're outside of that and you don't know any of that, or you don't know most of that, and you're hearing it for the first time, it's going to be tough to say you're in the culture. You may be in the culture because you hear a lot of rap and you got a lot of artists that you like, right? But the culture is deeper than just, I like this song by freaking NBA Youngboy, I like all his music. That's not just the culture. It's a bigger issue than just liking whoever, insert rapper. You know what I'm saying? So it's a bigger thing. Even if you just like, I like Inspector Deck, I like Wu-Tang, da-da-da. Being in the culture is much more responsibility than just liking your favorite rap songs, this and that. And you have a responsibility to understand what the culture is. And one of the things that we have come as misconceptions in this culture is who sells the most records. That's the best person in the culture. That is false. Record selling has nothing to do with the culture. Now, we've added it as a component to measure your impact, we can say, okay, this one sold such and such records, that one sold them a certain amount of records, blah blah blah. We're having a conversation now that whoever just went #1 on Billboard is the best rapper. That is so far removed from what we're doing with this culture. I can't even express it to you. Right, I put it on Twitter the other day. Somebody was talking about, oh, Drake #1, da da da. I said, oh, how many records he has sold? So he's still the #1 selling. And I was like, the culture doesn't. I said, hip hop doesn't care about that, right? And these people go back, well, yo, you said this and that about Kendrick, da da da. I'm reporting the news, gang. That's my job. But I'm never going to sit back and base my top 10 of rappers on who sold the most records. It's not even going to be a factor. It's only a factor when you start to try to quantify and equalize what the whole world viewpoint of a artist is. Okay, the record sales do come into play, but I'm never going to put Vanilla Ice in a conversation with greatest rappers because he sold XYZ amount of records. It's never going to happen. So it's more to it than quantifies that concept. And a lot of people that want to put those two things together and strip it clean, a lot of them really aren't in this culture. Let's just be honest. It's going to be a person. There's a flood of conversation right now on Twitter about how many records this guy has sold, Drake, right? And now that makes him the best in the culture. You can see it up and down Twitter. It's my GOAT. He's the best in the culture. Somebody just gave him credit for beat switching. I'm not even joking. It's like before Drake, no one was beat switching. I really just saw that tweet yesterday. Right? So everything that this guy's doing that's been done since the freaking 70s and 80s, they're making it like it revolves around these one or two artists that have this big thing going on. And right now that they have found a way to manipulate these numbers, right? These labels they got this stuff figured out. They've been figuring this out since the 70s too. How to get these records in different places, how to do a little greasy palm for the DJs. They've been doing this since the 70s, gang, and 80s, and make sure the right DJ get the right record, and that right record gets in that top 5, that 25 at 5, or whatever they doing, that 7 at 8, whatever. That DJ get that little you get that paper, you get that envelope, like da da da. So they've been greasy palming this stuff for a while. That doesn't mean that the best rappers, the people in the culture, are going to tell you who's the best rappers. And what happened with this whole thing situation, which made me, that inspired me to have this conversation, was people started to make it like this guy runs this culture because he sold XYZ amount of records, and he has good favor with a lot of people who like a lot of his records, which aren't really that much culture based to him, because over the years we've not seen much culture from artists like Drake. And I can even go even further to other artists that I say they really aren't culture related, in my opinion, but they get a lot of credit for the culture. Now I can't say, all right, you aren't culture at all, right? But at the same time, when the artists like a Future or somebody like that, when they lean more towards, I just want to make hot hit records that will move the needle and get me more burn, and all it is about that, because Future comes from a lineage. He comes from Atlanta. He comes from Outkast, the Dungeon family. That family is serious rappers, and they never placated to try to use a formula. And Outkast was big because of that, because they never tried to use a formula and try to be #1. The biggest thing, they try to make really good records that would resonate within the culture, and they always did. They never missed. So that's why we love Outkast, and that's why Outkast sold so many records, because the people outside of the culture, whether they were entrenched in hip hop or not, they could resonate with that music. Black, white, indifferent, it doesn't matter. They loved Outkast and what they stood for. They always stood 10 toes down in this culture. They stood 10 toes down for Atlanta. They stood 10 toes down for the Dungeon family, and people revered that. They never, ever tried to come out, we're going to make a hit record. They just made really big records that became hits, and that's the difference. So the culture, there's a lot of big records in this culture, a lot of big artists, Queen Latifah, LL Cool J, Fresh Prince. There's some huge artists, right? We've been selling records since the early 80s. I think Houdini was the first. I said this on the show, and it turned out to be right. Houdini was the first rap group to go platinum. They did it like in the 80s, like, I don't know, 84, 85. Houdini went platinum, and huge record. They had Friends. How many of us have them, right? We've been doing this for a while. It's not new. But what happens is people start to forget, and they start to focus on the ones that last the longest. So now we only think that Drake, Jay-Z, you know what I'm saying, Ja Rule. We only thinking about those guys, but this has been a long lineage of big records, and some people only focus on who can sell the most records, and that becomes redundant. We lose sight of these four elements because we're so focused on first week sales. It's become a monster in this community. We're worried about first week sales. You know who's worried about first week sales? The label owner. Not you and me. We shouldn't give a shit about the first week sales, but somehow that has creeped into our psyche, and now we're worrying about, oh, I hope he sells such and such record. Like, look at these fans on Twitter and wherever. For every artist now, they just worried about what the first week sales, because then their identity is wrapped up in the first week sales. It's not that the record is good or bad. It's first week sales. I can name you 1,000 records that got. I can't even tell you what the sales were. The sales were trash, and I love them records. Like KRS-One got some of the best records in history. Right? Nas got some of the best records in history. We don't care about the first week sales. We only care because these people care now. So now we got to figure out, what's the first week sale? Because it's now identifying that the rapper is good or not, and we need to get away from that. You see these Drake fans, they all in a frenzy and tensy, and they trying to get the Nokia to number one because his identity is wrapped up in being number one. He's number one. They don't care if the song is good or not. I personally think No Kid is not a good record, but they think it is. So it's like now we got to sit here every day. They can't tweet about nothing else but first week sales. He's with number one. He's number two. We got to get him number one. It's like they don't care about him putting out good quality music. They just care about whatever music he put out. Can we get one of them songs to be number one so we can beat our chest and say that Drake is the man again? When in actuality, the culture itself, let's just be honest, the culture has already chosen that they're not rocking with Drake. That's why the battle was so lopsided from the very beginning. The culture wanted Drake to lose because these elements right here, a lot of them feel like he doesn't understand it. Because he's now focused on just being number one, and now he's making music faster. The music isn't as good as it was before. Let's just be honest. He's all over the place. He's doing Afro beats and world music, and his house music is all over the place. He's doing any and everything to see what sticks, and everything's sticking because they know what to do. They know what to do to make it stick. It's like, just give me the record. I'll do the rest. I'll get it to the right DJs. I'll put it in the right places. We'll put it on every playlist. It don't even matter really what it sounds like. We're going to get it there. We're going to do a lot of tricks and get it on TikTok. They got a million tricks, gang. This stuff ain't even organic no more. Doesn't have to be. Not Like Us was an organic record, but the culture chose that record, inside and out of the culture, that was the one, right? And the only people against it are the fans of the person that he's dissing in that record. But for the most part, the culture chose that record and is still choosing it. So what we got now is a cultural divide where now we're tugging for how many did it sell. We're training these young kids coming up to just wait for the first week sales, because that's gonna determine if this record is culturally acceptable, and that's not what we are. We were never about that. We really used to clown people for talking about record sales, and we used to clown people for talking about spins on the radio. Spins on the radio came or they didn't come, but we never based our love of the music if the radio. We used to diss the radio, gang. Like, get that radio shit out of here. Radio, this and that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we used to, like, EPMD, they had a song called The Crossover. Anybody that crossed over, we looked at you sideways. Almost the last thing, I'm just going to be honest, the last thing you wanted to be was a crossover. You didn't want you wanted to have a hit, but you wanted to have a hit that was culturally acceptable. You didn't want to have a hit just for the sake of having a hit. Because a lot of times the guy with the hit today would be out of business tomorrow. And never for 90% of the time, if you got that crossover hit, your career was in trouble. And I'm just going to be honest, it wasn't until really around that time, a little bit before Drake came in, that it started to be, okay, no, we want crossover appeal. It started to change the early 2000s, right? Late 90s, early 2000s, it started to be around that time Master P started blowing it up, make them say, all that stuff. They started trying to make crossover hits. Because before that, you wanted your shit, you wanted Wu-Tang. Yes, you wanted to sell some records, but you wanted to be Wu-Tang, right? You wanted your hardcore crowd to come out and see you and buy them tickets. Fugees. When Fugees never made crossover hits. Fugees made really good big records, and the hits crossed over. You never wanted to be a crossover. But I'm going to be honest, around the time of Ja Rule, 50 Cent, Drake, they wanted crossover records. It became, okay, how can we get this record to cross over? And that was the dirtiest word in hip-hop. They've cleaned it up, and now here we are in 2025. All they want to be is crossovers, and that's where we have the divide in hip hop, where we got to get back to these elements because people don't understand what we're dealing with. We were never trying to be radio pop stars, right? We were never trying to be these mansions and all that. That was something that could come if you got it the hip hop way, but we never ever I'm not gonna say authorized, but we never pushed for big record sales. We never pushed for radio play. It just transformed into that because there's a lot of people that need a lot of money to come back because they put money into these artists. When you hear about these great giant, these huge record deals, oh, they signed them for $1 million. They gave them $2 million. Well, they need that money back. And to get that money back quickly, they need a crossover hit. When J. Cole first signed to Jay-Z, they wouldn't put his album out because they said, you got some good records, but you ain't got no hit record. Jay-Z understood the game. And in a way, that messed him up because then he made the workout plan or whatever he called, I don't know what the name of the record is. But whatever record he made using Kanye's workout plan, right? He ended up making a record called Let Nas Down, right? So he ended up feeling like he contradicted what he stood for. And they made him contradict what he stood for because they wasn't going to put his music out. God knows what he would have done, right? If they would have put the record out. But he had the hit record. He blew up. And J. Cole has spent the rest of his career trying to live down that big record. Spent the rest of his career doing the opposite. He's become the anti-crossover rapper because he had a big hit record. Because we know when in the annals of hip-hop, when they write everything down at the end of the day, most, if not all of those crossover artists are going to be taken away from the record. I'm just going to be, they're going to be stripped. Jay-Z got enough bona fide hip-hop records. He's not going to be erased from that hip-hop, the legendary stuff when they start to write. It's certain people like a Drake, like a Future, that's not going to be written on that paper when they start talking about real hip-hoppers. Outkast will be, right? Because when you go in and not understand these four elements and this extra stuff that they tacked on, when you just focus on the rapping and the fashion, right? If you just focus on that and you try to make a formula to be a crossover artist, then at that point, when we peel back the layers, and now I'm not talking about the average online social media person. I'm talking about when you start sitting down in these hip hop conversations and these people like me that really talk about hip hop, we're going to erase you. You're going to have an asterisk, and we're probably going to start to slowly, like we're doing with Drake, just remove your stuff from this hip-hop conversation. Right now, I don't know anybody that really talks hip-hop that can really sit down and have a real conversation that includes Drake about hip-hop. I'm just going to be honest. I can't imagine any social commentary or influencer that does YouTube videos that's going to sit down and have a serious conversation with a hip-hop head like me and try to include Drake in the conversation. I'm just going to be honest. So what it is this stuff is important in the annals of hip-hop. And hip-hop is not going to always be like this about these numbers, da-da-da. As we start to get older and 100 years down from now, they're going to start looking back and they're going to start really, people discover real, they remove the fluff, right? They're going to remove the fluff and they're going to brush this stuff off and start to say, oh, wow, hip-hop was a great art form. Let's read about it. Let's think about it. Let's figure it out. And they're going to start going through the whole things and they're going to start being like, oh, we get it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Melly Mel, da-da-da. They're going to start seeing what really spawned from that tree that was real fruit and what was rotten fruit. And they're going to separate, right? And I'm just going to be honest, stuff like Kendrick, KRS-One, Nas, all that stuff is going to be considered the real fruit. And the other stuff is going to be rotten. And when they start to build these museums and this and that, if they do put that rotten fruit in there, it's going to be as cautionary tales. And they're going to be like, okay, this is how you weren't supposed to use hip hop. I'm just going to be honest. You got to mark my words for it. I'm just telling you what it's going to be. Because they're going to be keeping it a buck. They're going to be like, this guy, a lot of people wrote for him, da-da-da. He did a lot of things the worst kind of way. I know some people that think like, how you going to say this, da-da-da? You're a hater of Drake. I'm just being honest to you, gang. Young Buck, I'm just telling you what it is out here in this hip-hop world. We have a code, and these things are part of the code. And there were certain people that lived up to this code, believe it or not. And there's certain people, we can go person for person if you want to, one day, that didn't live up to this code. They abused it. They used it for personal gain, and they didn't understand. They never loved it. They loved what it could do for them. They loved what it could bring them, and they used it for that. And it's not just Drake. It's a lot of people that use this culture for their own means. and they don't love it. They just want to get the money out of it and be known for having a lot of money and a lot of record sales. And that's not a hip hopper. I'm just going to be honest. So the people who think of hip hop and the beautiful art form that it is, and they condense it all the way down to how many records you sold or how much money you got. Like when Academic speaks about the legends, he says them old dusty, crusty dudes that they didn't get their bag right. They should have had the contract right. He doesn't understand what this stuff is about. He thinks it's all about getting your bag. And that's why he does the things he does and moves the way he moves and does these awful things and says these awful things about people in the culture instead of embracing them and helping to bring them up. He wants to always big up the new young boys that he's not beefing with, because he's always beefing with somebody. So whatever young boy he's not beefing with, he wants to pretend he's their age. Aka's getting up there, but he wants to, the 20-year-olds, he wants to make them hot, and diss the old heads, or that he calls them old heads, the dusty, crusty old heads, because he has no respect for the culture. How are you a DJ and you calling these guys that built this culture dusty and crusty? But that's a whole nother subject. I just wanted to say the culture itself, if you don't understand and you weren't there, you can learn about it. You can go down rabbit holes. They have mad videos breaking down the culture, breaking down the elements, breaking down Kool Herc, everything, the pros and the cons. Sugar Hill Gang, right? Sugar Hill Gang is a fraud. They're credited with one of the greatest rap records. I love that record. I heard that record when I was a little kid. But the Sugar Hill Gang Rappers Delight record is a fraud. Just going to be honest. Most of the record was written by a guy that wasn't even a rapper or a hip hopper. I have a video way down in my thing where I talk about Sugar Hill Gang. So it ain't just Drake. This whole thing has a lot of turbulent, questionable people who jumped in the game, right? Used it for what it was. Sugar Hill Gang eats to this day off that record, but Big Bang Hank stole that whole rhyme from a real MC. Used his whole rhyme, said his name in the rap and everything while he's rapping it. He's not a rapper. He's not a hip hop head, right? Stole it from Kaz, I'm sorry. Grandmaster Kaz stole his whole rap. He was his manager, and then he set his whole rap in the thing, and they signed him, signed the other two guys. You know what I mean? So it's like, what we doing? So, even Melly Mel with the Grandmaster Flash record, the message and all that, that was written. That was the one I was talking about. That was written by a whole guy that wasn't even a hip hopper. He was a musician, and he wrote most of that. Melly Mel wrote his verse, but everything else was written by a guy that wasn't even a rapper. So it's like hip hop has its moments, it has its turbulence, but at the end of the day, it's a beautiful thing. And if you don't understand the pros and the cons of it, then you go around talking about first week sales. And it's much deeper than that. It's much more beautiful. Just do your research. That's all I want to say. And I'm going to leave it at this. The culture should police itself. And I'm not big on gatekeepers, because I feel like the gatekeepers going to get it wrong sometimes. So no, I'm not going to sit and say, we need gatekeepers. But what we do kind of need some control, where we let you slide in, we give you some chances. And then as you start to show us you're not worthy of this, we get you out of here. And we start to respect that when the culture gets you out of here, you can still go over there and make your pop money and do your big records and go hang out with Taylor Swift and all that. But stop coming back here trying to live and breathe what we do and then run and do your pop thing when you need your bag. All right? Let me know what you think in the comments. What you think about the hip-hop culture? What you think about this conversation? Let me know your feelings of everything I said in here. And if you have a dispute or whatever, put it in the comments, all right? CLBMG, I'm going to catch you on that flip side. Peace.
Look, mission impossible to drop a few lines without dropping old times when Southern Hill was still a gold mine. When pistol grips was my shit and I sold mine. When Alias was not a show and they told mine. Elevate your mind with high quality THC infused products. BlackYeti.com. Black-Yeti.com.
CLB.